Do you ever catch yourself worrying about things that are truly not a problem for now, and you're spending time, energy on thinking about that problem when it's something that you really should let go for now and think about later? I caught myself doing this today. I had something on my calendar that I needed to prepare for. It got rescheduled, and I had this opportunity to say, I don't need to think about that anymore because that's not something for now. That's something for later. It's being rescheduled. And I also had a friend that recently is pregnant, and she was talking about how so many people were telling her, like, don't get too excited. You don't know what's going to happen. And she came back and she said, you know what? If something happens, that's something for me to worry about in the future, not something for me to worry about right now. Two totally different examples, but so valid in the sense that so often you can rob yourself of the joy or the productivity, not even the joy, but productivity and brain capacity for something that you have going on in the future if you're worrying about it now. So think about where this is showing up for you in your life. If you're thinking about activities that are way down the road, maybe it's in your business or in your job, in your family vacations that you right now are like, I need to be planning XYZ. I need to be doing XYZ. I need to be executing these things. Do you? Do you really need to be planning them? If you think about a project management system, if you're not familiar with what that is, it's a way for you to organize your tasks into a software that allows you to plan things out in advance. And then it gives you reminders and steps along the way to make sure you're hitting your goals and hitting your tasks. And I use something like this in my business. It is a really great tool. People use it personally too. I'll link a couple below. But even if you're not using a tool like that, it is really thoughtful. It is really important to think about this when it comes to like how you're organizing your brain around it, right? So let's say you're planning a vacation. Well, you obviously have to plan ahead for that vacation. You have to buy tickets. You maybe have to buy flights. You have to prep and do some work ahead of time. So it doesn't mean that you just like don't think about it till you get there, but what parts of it are something to think about now and what parts of it are things to think about later? And can you just stay excited in the planning before you maybe get overwhelmed with the spend or different things like that? Like obviously you want to have a budget and you want to prepare yourself for what you're doing, but when you find yourself being like, okay, that's enough for now, I don't need to plan out the entire thing. I don't need to have an entire plan put together. I just need to have part of it. Then allow yourself to move to the next thing. Where I said I started thinking about this today was when I had an appointment rescheduled too. And it was an appointment that I had to do some prep for. I had to make sure I was on my A game for. And what I realized is when it got rescheduled, I could then sit in planning for that for the next 5 days, or I could be like, you know what? I've done the prep work. I maybe will do a refresher right before, but between now and then, I need to make the best use of my time on the other things that I'm working on, the other things I have on my calendar and my schedule and my goals, how I show up. Because energetically, if I just think about this one thing for the next 5 days, then I'm letting myself down in so many other areas. And I think this shows up in so many different things. Let's go back to the planning for a family. If things don't go as planned, that is really hard, right? Like we talk about those hard things on this podcast too. But if you're allowing yourself to celebrate when it's good, then should hard things happen, you've been able to celebrate. Where if those bad things happen, you robbed yourself of that celebration. And that doesn't mean that you should look down if that's the situation you find yourself in, but maybe learn from that and say, okay, how can I celebrate more at the beginning next time so that I can still have that moment of joy and celebration, even if things don't go my way? And if they do go your way, which is amazing, then you get to allow that celebration to truly be fun and continue through that. Allowing yourself to live more presently and in the moment rather than thinking of future problems or future things that you need to do is a skill. Honestly, it is a skill to be able to say, okay, I am going to be as present as possible while knowing that there are times that I have to be aware and prep for the future. And this shows up so much with our kids too, right? We know our kids are going to grow up. We know we're going to miss these moments. I don't know if you're like me, that I catch myself in these moments all the time where I'm like, I hope I remember this moment, knowing that I probably won't remember every part of it. And that is super tricky with motherhood, right? Super tricky with life in general. It doesn't even have to be with your kids. It could just be something you're experiencing, wondering, are you going to remember how you're feeling in this moment? And I think the best thing you can do is try to be as present as possible so that you can remember that. Maybe take a picture if that helps you remember things, and then get back to being in the moment and really enjoying it rather than being concerned, are you going to remember it in the future? It's tough. It's just such this balancing act, and allowing yourself to constantly be okay with that, be okay with finding that balance of presence and future and planning. I think it's really tricky, but really beautiful. And just catching yourself when you're like, you know what, I get to refocus my time and energy at this point. So take a moment and think about the things that you actually need to be focusing on this week, the things that you really need to have your heart, your brain, your soul, your energy, your money on this week. What are the things that you really need to be having focus around? And the ones that you don't, let it go. Whether you're using a piece of paper and you're writing down now and later into two different like areas of that piece of paper and brain dumping all the things for now and all the things for later under those two different titles, or you're using an actual project management system for your home or your business or your life, whatever that is, or maybe you're just truly thinking about it. And I do think there's a lot of power to putting it on paper, putting it in a system. But if it starts with you just thinking about, okay, is that a now or a later thing? Think about truly when things come into your brain, putting them into buckets. Is this now or is this later? And that will allow you to have so much more clarity around where your energy is going and so much more peace in the things that you decide to push off. I'm sending you so much love. Keep going after those goals, Mama. I'll see you next week.